So, in running my incubator and through just my general network, one of my favorite things to do is to talk to people who are insiders at different companies or people who recently leave one of the big tech companies. Ask them, like, okay, so what's actually going on at Netflix? What's actually going on at Google, at Spotify, at whatever? One thing that I've learned about Google is that search is dying. And there's been actually quite a couple articles about this, so it shouldn't be a shock to most people who are following this. But there is this Washington Post article, which I think is actually quite inaccurate based on what I've heard from people who recently left Google. The Washington Post article tries to make it about trust that, and kind of like makes it a little political. Google has lost the trust of consumers because of misinformation. I'm not sure how true that is. What I do know from like people who were at Google is that the real loss of search volume is not that they're like really losing people who are searching. It's that they're not gaining any people from younger generations. So Gen Z, younger millennials are just not using Google to search. And instead of this being like a political thing about Google and misinformation, it's actually more of a style thing. It's about how we interact with media has changed. I feel like in the era of search, I remember the first time I Googled something, I must have been 11 or 12. And the internet was a bit difficult before we had massive and effective search engines. Because you had to like know about things from someone, or someone had to tell you to go to a specific website, or you had AOL keywords, which was kind of like a primitive version of search, or even domain names. Or what you would really do is you just guess a domain name. You'd be like, I'm looking for cat food. So you type in catfood.com. Of course, when Google came around, you gained this like extra precision about what you could find. I'm looking for cheap cat food. I'm looking for a good deal on cat food coupons. And this is just a interesting way of exploring the web. Also, in this time as search was growing, became a place that was a lot about publishing, self-publishing. Things like blogs came to be, WordPress, and social media was not as prominent. Of course, there was early social media, but it didn't play such an important role in information as it does today. So one thing this Googler told me was that Gen Z, when they go to a new town, to find like a coffee shop, they will find the coffee shop through their TikTok feed, essentially. And this blew my mind because it doesn't really make sense, because you're looking for precision when you're looking for a coffee shop. Like, I am in a new town. I need to find a coffee shop. That's not to say that they never use Google Maps and type in coffee and like look at the reviews and stuff, but they do tend to make a lot more decisions based on what they find in their feed. Same goes for new recipes, shopping, all sorts of things. So really, you just don't need search like you used to. This was really hard for me to understand when I first heard it from a Googler, which was probably about a year and a half ago. I thought I could never just like find a recipe on a feed, because like, wouldn't I be looking for specific ingredients or this or that? Well, lo and behold, last week I was looking through Reels, of course, because I'm a millennial. So like TikTok, the algorithm doesn't work so well for me. And I think it's because I'm an expat in Spain. It doesn't know what to show me, but Instagram Reels works pretty well. And I saw a recipe on Instagram Reels, and it was like pretty simple. I think I saved it. I might have not even saved it. I think I just watched it a couple of times, and it was like simple enough that I kind of got the idea. And then when I was like deciding what to make for dinner later that night, I was like, oh, I'm going to do that thing because I have flour. I'm going to go get fresh eggs to do it. It was like this pasta, cutting pasta with like scissors kind of thing. I've done fresh pasta before, but I've never done it with like the scissor cutting technique. Anyway, it was really cool. And at the end of it, it just kind of dawned on me. And I remember that conversation I had with that ex-Googler who was telling me like people aren't Googling recipes anymore. And I just couldn't believe him. I just couldn't believe that. But lo and behold, it happened to me. I made a recipe that I just like randomly heard about. And I realized that the way the feed works, especially with short form video, is it's kind of like having random conversations with strangers. Sometimes when I go to the coffee shop, maybe I'll strike up a conversation with someone like, oh, what are you doing here? Because a lot of people are just visiting Spain. And so I'll be like, oh, where are you from? Blah, blah. And then maybe they'll tell me a story or they'll tell me about something. And and they're a total stranger. They're not my friend. I don't really like care about them on some deep level. They don't care about me. We're just having an interaction. And short form video is very similar to that. I don't want to say it's a replacement for that, but it fulfills the same kind of need or idea. And it does make sense that if somebody told me like, oh, I went to the market and like you can find the special cheese there and you can like do this recipe, you should try it out. It would make sense that I would try it out. And so now I'm finally understanding how like searching through feed works. But of course, it's not searching. Search is actually what's dying. It's finding, it's discovering. It's like a new form of discovery. And this is really difficult for older people to understand. Oh, there's a fly here. Be gone. It was difficult for me to understand, and I don't feel like I'm that old. I was born in 1990, but Google defined for so long how I use the internet. I'm also like much more of a desktop user than a mobile user, and I don't love short form video, especially here on YouTube. I find that it's a bit better on Instagram, and I don't know, TikTok just doesn't seem to work for me. I've tried to like stuff. I've tried to search for certain keywords. I spent like a whole day looking at the water talk trend because I find it very fascinating. And now if I pull up TikTok, I don't get anything about water talk or anything that it's just none of it is relevant. It's like Spanish kids dancing and I'm like, why am I getting this? I'm not interested. So I don't know what's going on with TikTok in Spain. Maybe it's like the data protection laws don't let them have a good feed. What's really happening when we talk about like the death of search and the emergence of discovering through the feed, I'm going to say. I know feed is like kind of an older term that we associate with like the Facebook feed and stuff like that. But I like to use the word feed because discovering through feed is very natural to the same way. Imagine you're going for a walk and you're going down the street and you see a building, then you see another building, then you see a bicyclist, and then you see this. That's very similar to how short form video is revealed to you. First you see this video, then you see this video. And they're a bit more disjointed than when you go for a walk. When you go for a walk, everything is kind of like connected. And I do wonder if we're going to move towards that. I guess long form video is more connected. Oh my God, I think that bug is still here. I think that's also why long form video will always have a place on the internet. I think long form video is really cool. Even if it's not like chock full of information, I don't think my content is really chock full of information. I'm not trying to rapid fire you like tip number 1, tip number 2, tip number 3. It's more conversational, but it's like, again, it's like connecting with someone a bit longer. Obviously, if you're bored of connecting with someone with short form, it's like nice because you can like move on to the next one. So the internet is becoming less of like a place to do research. It's becoming a less of a place to pointedly find things. And it's becoming more of a place to just live, to just exist, which I think is actually a lot more zen. And it's just unfortunate that social media has created a whole lot of like mental health challenges. And I know I am in the minority on this, but I actually think it's kind of a growing pain. It's because a generation was exposed to a form of social media that I think is being refined by removal of likes, by more explanation of how the algorithm works, more explanation of how filters work, stuff like that. I think the younger kids actually get it a lot more and they're less threatened by it and they value real relationships more. Whether those relationships are nurtured online or in person, they can tell the difference a bit better. I don't like this idea that like only real life has value because, like, for example, my brother, I live in Spain, my brother lives in LA, and we work together on a project, and we also talk all the time. Well, we're talking all the time through the internet, right? So it's like, is my relationship with him like fake because it's online? Like, no, it's a genuine relationship, and the internet can facilitate connection between people. That's why a lot of like pediatricians that say like no screen time for babies and toddlers always put an asterisk and they say like except FaceTime with family members, of course, because, it's amazing that like a kid can connect with a family member across the world. Of course, it provides value for that kid, even if it's in front of the screen, which actually just goes to show that the whole screen fear is probably overblown anyway. That's a separate video, but I think the real problem is like, what are they watching? What are they doing? Right? Because even if they're doing something of low value, not on a screen, it's still a low value activity. And all of this to say is that we're moving towards living in a way that's more integrated with the web, in a way that's more comfortable, in a way that's more human. Living through the feed is more human than searching. It makes more sense to get little snippets of things, even a short form, as much as I like struggle with it sometimes. It is like more realistic, right? Because in real life, you have like a snippet of this experience, a snippet of this experience. And then sometimes you'll like sit down with someone for 3 hours and you'll chat with them. But you can do that online, right? You have like long form and short form content. You can go read something for 3 hours or you can read a tweet. You need that variety. There's not one format that is ideal, but what is ideal is encountering content, not looking for it. The hardest thing to believe for me still is that we're going to be encountering like restaurants to go to or coffee shops to go to instead of like saying like this is my geographical location. But, when you think about it, it's like not really that difficult for software to identify where you are and, send you stuff for you to encounter that is relevant to your geographical location. So it's not outside the realm of possibility even today, and it'll just become more and more relevant in the future. I think search will always exist, of course, in like a very small niche area of like research, trying to find a specific piece of content, but it won't be the primary way we interact with content online because it just can't be. Another problem with search is that there's like winners and losers for whatever keyword. There's always like a top result. Obviously, Google now uses an algorithm, and your first result for something is different than my first result for something, but it still filters out most of the content and it tells me go here instead of let's go for a walk. Let's go for a walk through this content, which is actually like a much more natural way to approach and filter things out. Back to the whole like Google Insider thing. From what I understand, there is like a small panic at Google about this. Obviously, Google has a lot of products and they make money in a lot of different segments, but search is still kind of like the core of their business, and it's definitely their historic core. And there is a bit of panic just to see how the younger generation effectively has abandoned search, except for like very niche needs. I think in product management and in software companies, we're not really aware enough of this cultural shift. I guess if you're not really targeting Gen Z or younger millennials, you wouldn't even like really care about it. But whoever you're targeting, they will get older and you will eventually have to like deal with like younger generations. So you should always think 10 years in the future. If you're targeting older millennials, you need to consider that this is a shift in how people find your marketing materials, and it's not even just how people will find your startup or whatever. It's also in how they will use it. If the idea of searching is even part of how your product works, that's something you have to reconsider and think about. How does like encountering stuff, how could encountering versus searching work within your product? if that is relevant. I'm sorry, I'm so out of breath. I'm in my third trimester, and I literally feel like I'm gonna give birth. Oh God, the angles are so weird. Every time I take a step, oh, every time I take a step, I feel the like my last vertebrae like pop, and I can just barely breathe. I feel physically great. Otherwise, I just feel very big, very low, very ready to go. Thanks for watching my video. I'll see you around.